Hello, BookTube. I want to show you a little more mail, starting with periodicals that I got yesterday and that I have been examining. I got the London Review of Books and the latest New York Review of Books, both of them hideously late. Everyone that I know who subscribes to these had these a long time ago, but I'll take what I can get. And this is the London Review of Books that right up at the top they announced that Andrew O'Hagan has a centerpiece essay on Robert Louis Stevenson at Bournemouth. And it is wonderful. I mentioned it yesterday. It is wonderful. I want to read you a little bit of it, just because I remarked yesterday that it's just as good on Henry James as it is on Robert Louis Stevenson. We have here, let's see here, at one point in the essay, remember the pallid brute that lived at Scarrymore like a wee beevil in a biscuit, Stevenson wrote to Henry James. Yet his 3 years there, the only period he spent in England, were the best years of his writing life, giving rise to a group of masterpieces as well as several mysteries about his own life. In Bournemouth, Stevenson found the core of his talent. It all started with a spirited exchange in print with Henry James. It's September 1884, when Stevenson was new to that oasis of convalescence, which is what the seaside was at the time. He picked up a copy of Longman's magazine, which carried James's essay, The Art of Fiction. He knew James only at a distance and admired him. Stevenson, who had published Treasure Island a year before, was 33, beloved of readers, and worshipped by his friends. James was 42, known mainly for Portrait of a Lady and Daisy Miller, examples of the, quote, international theme he had mined with such singularity. He was a solitary figure, an arch stylist who appeared to live as a ghost in the varnished rooms of his own sensibility. That's extremely good. I think that's extremely good. The rest of the issue had lots of good stuff in it too, but that essay really stood out for me. And I am going to excerpt it, of course. I don't keep old reviews anymore. Instead, I cut out the pieces that are of any kind of interest. There are two in here. And fold them up neatly and find homes for them. This will go in my copy of Frank McGlynn's biography of Robert Louis Stevenson, along with everything else that I have about him. And then there was the New York Review of Books, which was a more contentious issue than I was expecting. This journal started out contentiously. It started out almost as a counterculture journal to what was viewed as the ossified literary catechism of the day. But it has since ossified into a literary catechism of its own, despite having a succession of editors. And so when I get to, for instance, a long piece about Garth Greenwell by Sigrid Nunez in this case, but it could be by anybody, I know what I'm going to read, and I did. Just an enormous list of all the ways in which he is the greatest person in the world, the greatest writer who's ever lived. And I was kind of expecting that to run all throughout this issue, but it does not. Not only does Let me get the example here. There's some very good stuff in here. Gregory Hayes does a review of Horace's Ars Poetica, a book by Jennifer Ferris Hill from Princeton that I don't think I ever got, and I would like it, despite the fact that the review is not necessarily all that positive. But there's also a review. It's all the way in the back here. R.J.W. Evans reviews Emperor: The New Life of Charles V that we saw on this channel last year. But the centerpiece for me was a little bit on the queasy side, because a number of factors combined to make it queasy. One is that it's a writer I really respect. Colm Tobin is a writer I really respect. I can't just dismiss him as a partisan hack, although before this issue I couldn't dismiss Sigrid Nunez as that either. And what are you, other than a bandwagon jumping hack, if you praise Garth Greenwell for the incredible insightfulness of his fiction? I don't know what you are if you do that, unless drastically inept at reading fiction. But I know this author isn't. So, but Colm Tobin, I know his work. I respect him. I appreciate his work, and that is an element of queasiness when that author is reviewing something, because I'm not going to be able to easily dismiss the conclusions the author comes to one way or another. The queasiness is added to if the author reviews a book that I liked, especially if that book is a little bit contentious or hasn't received much in the way of review, and this book has not. received much in the way of review in the English language press. It's The Catholic School by Eduardo Albanati. Gigantic piece of autofiction that I really enjoyed on a number of different levels. I read it a few times. I praised it on this channel, praised it to editors, tried hard to find an editor who would let me write about it, and was unsuccessful. And Bean reviews it in this issue of the NYRB, and you can tell that this is going to be a contentious review simply by the title. Nasty, brutish, and long. But it gets worse. It gets so much worse. He is gentlemanly about it and gradual about it, but he rips the novel to shreds. Tears it to shreds. At one point, he's quoting Albanati, and he says that Albanati writes, quote, "A man may make uses of the female body in one of four ways: by paying the woman for her services, by viewing an image of her body, nude or clothed, in still photo or film, by seducing her, or by kidnapping her." Close quote. One wonders not only where he had been since 1975 that he could equate these four things, put them in the same list, but where his editors have been and where the jurors of the Strega Prize, Italy's most prestigious literary award for a novel, have been since they gave this book that prize in 2016. And to me, I was reading that, he hits that note all throughout, basically equating the stuff that the pronouncements that you're reading on the page with pronouncements by Albanati himself. And the whole time that crescendo of that was growing, I was objecting. I was thinking, no, don't do that. Don't do that. That is not the right way to read this book. And what are you saying? It's very blatant in the course of 1,000 pages. So are you saying that something that blatant and that easy to explain simply missed all of the jurors of the Strega Prize? And not only that, but all of the critics in Italy who loved this book, who thought it was great, read it as carefully as you did, as carefully as I did. Are you thinking that got by them all? You're the only one to say, hey. but that's nothing compared to the ending. I want to read you. The last paragraph is basically a peroration, and you don't get that very often. I maintain that a certain degree of extra fire and talent, a certain intimacy with the written word is necessary to effectively produce a peroration that doesn't feel like hectoring. And I maintain that Irish writers have a greater ability to do that than any other writers in the world. But I just wish in this case that it hadn't happened. The final paragraph is this: while Albanati's descriptions of school life, the novel's all about an all-boy Catholic school, or it starts there, of all male enclaves and their discontents are accurate and sharp, his ability to write about rape is limited. While his sense of class and privilege is perceptive, as is his version of Catholicism, the minute he begins to generalize, he loses the plot. Because he has, it seems, no sense of his own limits, and because he gives the impression of someone who feels entitled to be heard, his book is of value only as an unexpurgated version of a dark unconsciousness, or a mind unfettered by circumspection, or a man who feels free to say whatever comes into his mind. It would be too cruel to suggest that this book is necessary reading for anyone, but it may be useful for those who wish to see an example of how little progress we have made over the past 40 years, or for those who wish to experience an interminable display of loquaciousness and idiocy masquerading as a novel. I believe the 21st century response to that would be, ouch. and I don't know whether or not, what kind of response it's going to get in the letters page. But I believe that you can tell from those excerpts that I read the gist of the argument that this reviewer is making, and I believe that just is wrong. And that's maddening. I almost thought, I contemplated writing a letter myself, defending the book. But I want to see what other people do. And I have also, it's only Thursday, but I have reached my quota for letters fired off to editors, publishers, and writers in the course of this week. I think I'm going to cool it until next week, as I've done that quite a bit this week. But I also got some, in addition to these periodicals, these are from yesterday. I worry about overloading you with videos. so those are from yesterday, and I needed time to digest them anyway. That review, that scathing takedown of the Catholic school, will get pulled out and clipped, neatened, and folded, and tucked inside my copy of the Catholic school, good and bad. I don't just put choruses of praise in books like that, but boy, oh boy, that was rough, because I can't dismiss it. But I think it's wrong, so I'll be thinking about it a lot. I'm just hoping that it doesn't provoke me to reread the Catholic school. I'm going to wait until it comes out in paperback, then I'll read it again, because it's a whole weekend to do. But I have a couple of packages that I thought we'd go through as well. just to see what we have. This first one's priority mail. That usually means it's from a person instead of a publisher. But in these days, you can never tell. What have we got here? No, this is from a publisher. Okay. Let's see here. So this is a new book. Let's see. It comes out. The date for it is early October. And this looks like a finished copy. No, this isn't a finished copy. This is going to come out as a $25 hardcover in early October. It's by Lynn Sharon Schwartz, who a lot of you will know for this book, Disturbances in the Field. And it's called Truth Telling. With her dazzling new collection of short fiction, Lynn Sharon Schwartz has propelled herself to the front ranks of inventive short story writers such as George Saunders and David Means. Her characters are indefatigable New Yorkers, and while these stories mostly take place in and around New York City, they are presented with widely different techniques. Some of the stories are grounded in realism, while others are realistic flights of fancy and fantasy. In general, the daily lives of Schwartz's characters are thwarted by a swerve of fate, a mishap, or a time warp. Oh yes, these are short stories. That's what happens in short stories. A man generously lends his car to his ex-wife and is bewildered when she neglects to return it, making plausible excuses not to bring it back. A sophisticated high-end clothing store owner is taken in and manipulated by an ailing elderly neighbor who then leaves all her earthly possessions. A woman who has been left by her husband for a younger woman is forced to visit the couple in order to see her children, realizes, with a mixture of fascination and elation, that her former husband has been physically and psychologically debilitated by his recent marriage to a much younger wife. Okay. Well, I don't have anything against this author, so we shall see. A collection of short stories. So that is early October, and I'd be willing to bet that's far enough away so that might actually happen. You never can tell, though. With book release dates for 2020, you never can tell. I mean, will this show up in hardcover in bookstores? Will bookstores be open in early October in 2020 in, let's say, the United States? Book tours are probably out of the question. Book readings are probably out of the question, but maybe not. Maybe society will have adapted sufficiently by then so that something like the normal author experience can happen. Or what happens if in late September, when flu season gears up, another COVID season gears up as well? Then maybe all of this is on hold all over again, just indefinitely. Who knows? We shall see. I have the book, so I can write about it. I can read it and write about it. And then we have a box. We'll see what this thing is. I think this is probably from a person. This could be something that I ordered online. Let's see here. Oh, it is. It's something I ordered online. Hi, baby. Oh, what's that? It's something I ordered online. Oh, boy. Fantastic. Okay. All right, this is great. This is a graphic novel. This is an Avengers epic collection. Marvel Comics recently, like 20 years ago, started doing epic collections of full-color paperback reprints of old comic books of theirs in their enormous backlist. And this is one of them. This is Avengers. Behold the Vision, which has this cover rather than the famous cover of the issue that introduces the Vision. I don't know if that's going to be reprinted in here. Yes, that is the cover that actually says "Behold the Vision." Not sure why they didn't use this, but this has a greater cast of characters. Maybe that's why it has Thor and Iron Man, and I don't mind it either way. This is a great run on the title. This is Roy Thomas and John Buscema. This is the introduction of the Vision, the introduction of the Hawkeye version of Goliath. It's the introduction of there's a lot of emphasis put on the Black Panther. He is an integral member of the team here. We get in these issues we get the origin of the Avenger Hawkeye, which we knew nothing about him. We barely knew his name. It was just a Marvel character who was introduced that way. People who love to comic book fans who love to wax on about how we knew nothing about the personality, the name, the history of the character Wolverine. Took a long time even to learn that his name was Logan. Forgot that Stan Lee and Roy Thomas did that long before with Hawkeye. That just didn't bother to tell us anything about him until, except very gradually. This has a little bit of artwork by Gene Colan. Most of it is by John Buscema, and I believe these issues, this particular run that's carried in here, also gives us a lot of the Black Knight, the character of the Black Knight, that I think is going to enter the Marvel Cinematic Universe in the next phase of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. I believe the Black Knight is going to be played by Kit Harington, Jon Snow from Game of Thrones. That'll be kind of weird, but what are you going to do? I won't be watching, so it won't matter to me. He is a... I often deride Hollywood characters for the extent of their tobacco addiction, and I have a category above 5 packs a day, and that is Guild Navigator, what I call Guild Navigator, where the person cannot go any amount of time, just where a supreme act of will and medical intervention can maybe get them through one 1-minute scene, but other than that, waking and sleeping, they don't eat anymore, they don't drink anymore. That's the only substance they take in. So how he's going to be, I guess he won't be alone in that regard for Marvel movies. I won't be watching, but I'll be happy to have this. I have here we go. I've got these. See, these are Avengers Epic collections. Just got these 2 in the mail. Now I have a third, and there are plenty more. There are plenty more Avengers Epic collections. It's just I don't know what I'll have to find out what each one of them covers, what era each one of them covers, and act accordingly, because I want all the old Avengers issues that I really like, naturally, but I'd like to try and navigate these Epic collections so that I don't get any of the ones that I don't like. I mean, there's an era right after this long Roy Thomas, John Buscema era. There's an era that I didn't particularly like, and we'll just have to see. Great, fantastic. Okay, well, there you go. So that is the mail. We have Lynn Sharon Schwartz, Stories, Truth Telling is the name of the thing, and an Avengers Epic collection to add to my collection. Fantastic. So I now have a pile of old Avengers back issues that I don't need anymore. All we've been seeing in my comic book days, we've been seeing that I have all these individual issues stapled on old moldy, flaking off paper. I don't need those anymore. I don't need to keep those anymore. I now have them in a form that is just convenient and fine. So that's it. I don't know if there'll be more mail today. I kind of doubt it. We're on very thin rations for mail these days, but if there is, of course, you'll be the first to know. Thank you, BookTube.